Yes, what? Ah, okay. Then maybe you should start. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, I wanted to start by commenting a little bit on the elements to the press that were issued by the Security Council yesterday. We welcome the statement of elements to the press that was issued by the Council. We believe it reflects the Council's continued interest in the situation in Yemen. And of course, we share the concern of the Council with regard to the humanitarian situation in Yemen. We continue to work closely with OCHA and all the other humanitarian organizations to provide the necessary assistance to the Yemeni population throughout Yemen. We are particularly concerned about the continued siege of Taiz, where hundreds of thousands of people are being denied the basic facilities of food and supplies. And we urge the international community and the United Nations organizations to apply maximum pressure on the Houthi forces surrounding Taiz to allow the free flow of humanitarian assistance to the city of Taiz. From our part, we have been trying to do everything we can to make sure that humanitarian supplies do reach the people of Taiz who are in dire need for that. In any case, we are in continuous contact with OCHA. We have been talking to them about the recent developments. We asked OCHA whether they feel that there was any need for any further involvement on the part of the Security Council or any new product out of the Security Council to help facilitate the humanitarian situation. The answer from the OCHA senior leadership was that they did not feel that there was a need for any such intervention. They said that they have not requested, neither directly nor indirectly, for the Security Council to issue any new product. The envoy, the Secretary General Special Representative, Mr. Ismail Wuld Sheikh Ahmed, also gave a briefing to the Council yesterday in which he also reconfirmed that from his point of view there was no need for any further declaration by the Council or resolution. Resolution 2216 continues to remain as the basis of any discussions regarding a political settlement in Yemen, and it provides a clear roadmap that starts with demanding that the Houthis end their illegitimate takeover of government facilities and institutions, and the return of all the weapons that have been taken unlawfully from the garrisons of the Yemeni army, and the return of the release of political prisoners, including the Minister of Defense, and the return of the situation to normality. This is what Resolution 2216 has stipulated. We continue to believe that that resolution provides the right basis for further progress in Yemen with regard to achieving a political situation. Once again, on the humanitarian front, there is no one who is more concerned about the plight of the Yemeni people than the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the rest of the GCC countries. The GCC countries, including Saudi Arabia, have provided the bulk of the humanitarian assistance that was requested by the United Nations. And with all due respect to the rest of the world, very little has come from other sources. So we continue to be the primary provider of food, medicines, supplies, and all products that have been in need by the Yemeni people. The reports given to the Security Council indicate that there is no shortage of supply of fuel or food products to the country, that there are, of course, difficulties with logistics and infrastructure and distribution, which is to be expected in a country like Yemen that does not have the kind of infrastructure and facilities that otherwise would have been expected elsewhere. I wanted to clarify these points because there are reports here and there about what the Security Council is up to and what the coalition forces may have in the way of their position in this regard. We continue to believe that a political solution is the only way to resolve the Yemeni crisis. We continue to believe that the resolution of the Yemeni crisis has to be based on Resolution 2216, the Gulf Cooperation Council initiative, and the outcome of the Yemeni national dialogue that took place. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Well, he called on me. He called on me.
The first question, so if I may, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you for this press conference, Mr. Ambassador, on behalf of UN Correspondent Association. And I would like to ask you about the headquarters of the inspection mechanism that was supposed to be in Jeddah was moved to Djibouti. Were you consulted about this decision to moving it to Djibouti before the decision was taken?
We did not have any particular preference for the location of this facility to be in Jeddah or anywhere else. This is a matter for the United Nations to decide. Wherever they feel is more convenient for their operations is fine with us.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. You have focused on the plight of the people of Taiz, and Taiz is a war zone, as everybody knows, that there are two separate factions. They are fighting there, and maybe I cannot understand why the focus is only on Taiz, whereas according to the UN Security Council and according to Mr. Stephen O'Brien, there are 2 million Yemenis on the brink of starvation, and those are spread or scattered all over Yemen. Saudi Arabia, in particular, which is leading this coalition, is accused of destroying infrastructure. You spoke about blockade of Taiz, but in reality, Yemen, all of Yemen, is under blockade. You destroyed the cranes in Hodeidah. Each crane costs $500 million. And you are accused of all kinds of destruction of infrastructure, from bridges to water plants to fuel storage tanks to factories. So yes, you have contributed to the aid of Yemen, but on the other hand, you have inflicted most of the destruction on Yemen. When are you going at least to stop attack against Yemen?
Well, I reject the premise of the statement. This is not a question, but a statement. I reject the premise of that statement. The discussion or the statement that we are attacking Yemen is obviously misleading. We are responding to the calls of the legitimate government of Yemen. We conduct our operations in consultation and in cooperation with the legitimate government of Yemen. What you are describing as being an attack on the infrastructure is absolutely wrong and untrue and cannot be imagined to be accurate, because at the end of the day, we all know that Yemen will need reconstruction and will need development, and we all know that most of that construction or reconstruction is going to be financed by Saudi Arabia and by the GCC. So there is no logic and there is no point in the statement that we are there to destroy the infrastructure. We are there upon the request of the Yemeni government to help the legitimate authority in Yemen restore their position and defeat the rebellious minority that has taken over the state of affairs of the government without any right or
Well,
justification.
Just a quick
Yes, sir.
follow-up here. Yesterday, the coalition issued a warning to all the ships in Hodeidah to evacuate, otherwise they will be attacked. That was only yesterday. Do you deny this? Another thing, today there was a report by the United Nations. It's not my statements. What I'm saying here is repeated all over in the reports of the United Nations, especially Mr. O'Brien's statement. 2/3 of the civilian children killed last month were killed by air attacks. I don't think that the Houthis have any fighters to do that.
Well, I think that the statistics you are quoting are inaccurate, are wrong. We are in continuous contact with Mr. O'Brien, and we have direct communications with him with regards to all the activities that are taking place in Yemen in terms of supply, in terms of humanitarian assistance, and so forth. Most of the civilian casualties in Yemen have been a result of the arbitrary shelling and the arbitrary use of mortar fire and other such equipment and facilities by the Houthi population. By the
So
Houthi
you
rebels.
deny the UN
Yes, sir.
reports in this case?
Yes,
that
sir.
you consider them erroneous?
I'm sorry, I think I have answered your question.
No, you consider UN,
Please, go
UN
ahead.
reports as erroneous.
I answered your question, I think.
Seems that he does. Thanks a lot. Matthew Lee, Inner City Press, on behalf of the Free UN Coalition for Access. Very glad that you came. It's a very good time to have you here. And so I want to ask just straight questions. One has to do with the ship, the WFP ship that was diverted, to Saudi Arabia. They've now said that they're pleased that it was released, but that the humanitarian IT equipment will be released in the future. I just want to get your side of what did you think? The Yemen permanent representative said on the record that he believed that it was Iranian military equipment. What's your understanding of the stuff that was in the ship? The other one has to do with Prince Zaid's report or his spokesman's statement about possible use of cluster bombs, and they say that they're trying to verify it. Is it your position? Are there any cluster bomb use, or why do they think that there is? And finally, just on the council itself, the panel of experts. I know that when their mandate was extended, there was some dispute, and Egypt took the position that the panel of experts has no jurisdiction over the actions of the Saudi-led coalition. And I wanted to know, is that just a kind of a legal position, or do you have a problem with the idea of some kind of external inquiry into the various things that are being alleged to find out if they're true or not? And if not the panel of experts, who should do it? Thanks.
Help remind me. The first question was the ship.
First question was the ship and the equipment. The second one was
I'm glad you asked about the ship, because the ship situation has now been fully clarified, and it has been fully clarified by the United Nations and by the humanitarian organizations of the United Nations. The ship did contain products that are of dual use, that are computers, communication equipment, etc. That is a fact that is accepted by the United Nations. Number two, these products were not declared in the manifest of the ship. They were not kept in the same place where the other products that were declared were being kept. They were kept in a different location, presumably hidden from any inspection. And fourthly, it was, according to the United Nations, should not have been on the ship going to Hodeidah, but should have been on a ship going to Aden. And we have received from the United Nations an expression of regret for all of these mistakes that have taken place. So the coalition authorities were totally justified upon receipt of the information about this ship, were totally justified in intercepting the ship and directing it to Jazan. The ship was subsequently released, including the contents of medical and food products. The other products were being in the process of being transferred to Aden to be delivered to the United Nations humanitarian organizations. We take at face value, we accept the United Nations statement that these were intended for the use of the United Nations facilities, and we do not accuse the United Nations of anything other than mishandling the process by not declaring it, by not putting it in the manifest.
Just one very brief. The Yemen permanent representative, when he said it was Iranian military equipment, where did he get that? Was there any time that you agreed with that, or that was just him?
Well, you'd have to ask the Yemeni representative, but we all thought at the beginning that there must be something funny in that equipment because it was hidden, because it was not declared, because the ship had originated from Iran and so forth. So there is reason to be suspicious there. Second question was,
The cluster bombs, the references.
we do not use cluster bombs in Yemen, period. The third,
And the third one has to do with the panel of experts, whether they or some other body should look at claims.
we have no problem with anybody looking into anything. All what we said was that the panel of experts was, although we appreciated their report and we thought that the report that was presented included a lot of positive information regarding the Houthis, regarding the financing of President Ali Abdullah Saleh and other information. The only thing we said was that this panel of experts were selected based on Resolution 2216 and other prior resolutions to deal with the obstructors of the political process, to suggest new names for obstructors, to administer the sanctions that were imposed on the obstructors, for them to try to give an opinion on other matters. First of all, they are not qualified enough to do so. They do not have the necessary resources. They do not have the necessary people. They do not have the presence on the ground. So there is no way for them to have been able to give such an accurate assessment of that situation. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Two questions. Today I had a live interview with with Khalid al-Yamani, the permanent traveler of Yemen, and he informed me live that his foreign minister, Mekhlafi, was informed in Moscow by Ismail Wuld Sheikh Ahmed that he's looking at the 15th of March for resumption of talks. Have you information about this? Is there a real chance of talks resuming on the 15th of March? And would you encourage the Yemeni delegation to go to these talks, whether there's a ceasefire or no ceasefire?
I hope that the talks will take place by the 15th of March. We have always encouraged all sides to attend these negotiations and to negotiate in good faith. And we hope that that will be the case.
معلي
Yes, sir.
اسمح لي بداية أن
I'm sorry?
Whether would you encourage them to go with or without ceasefire?
We think that the negotiations should take place under any circumstances.
معليك بالنظر إلى تحركات الدائرة حاليا في مجلس الأمن الدولي للخروج بقرار أو في بيان أو في خطوة جديدة فيما يتعلق بالعمليات الإنسانية، باعتقادكم ما هو الشيء الجديد الذي قد يأتي بهذا التحرك طالما أن هناك قرار 2216 لم يدخل حيز التنفيذ بعد؟ ما هي وجهة نظر المملكة حيال هذه الخطوة؟
لا نظن أن هناك حاجة لأي قرار جديد. نعتقد أن القرار 2216 قد غطى كل الجوانب الإنسانية والسياسية، ونعتقد أن أي قرار جديد لا يعيد التأكيد على ضرورة تطبيق 2216 سوف يضعف من ذلك القرار، ولذلك نحن لا نعتقد بوجود الحاجة، ولكن ما زلنا منفتحين على أن نستمع إلى وجهات النظر الأخرى وأن نتعاون مع الدول الأعضاء في مجلس الأمن إذا كانوا يرون أن هناك ضرورة مثل هذا القرار. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador. I mean, you continue to say that, deny that the reports about that the Saudi-led bombing is wreaking havoc in Yemen.
I hope it's wreaking havoc on the Houthi forces.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is that the Human Rights Watch and the Doctors Without Frontier have been saying that the Saudi-led coalition, this is what they say, not the Saudi-led coalition is responsible for the destruction of hospitals and other infrastructures and so forth. So what do you have to say? Do you think that these organizations are really wrong in saying that?
Well, anybody who says that the Saudi-led coalition targets deliberately civilian targets, including hospitals or schools or otherwise, is absolutely wrong. Is absolutely wrong. We do not target any civilian sites for bombing by the coalition forces. Absolutely. If mistakes happen, they are investigated. If there are facilities that are used by the Houthis and the forces loyal to President Ali Abdullah Saleh as headquarters that they are utilizing, that they have occupied and so forth, then they are legitimate military targets.
So
But we have not, and we will never target any civilian site to be directly attacked.
So what you're saying is that these targets were attacked only because you believed that they were being used by the Houthi rebels. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that if there are targets that are used by the Houthi rebels and where we have strong evidence to suggest that they are becoming military targets, then they are subject to being targeted. That's what I'm saying. Yes, sir.
Follow up on that.
At the beginning, you seemed to speak almost on behalf of OCHA. You were reflecting conversations you
No, I'm
had.
not talking about on behalf of OCHA. I'm
Okay.
reflecting my side, my conversation with OCHA.
But you said that they told you that they didn't want a Security
Correct.
Council
Correct.
resolution. You
And you
confirm
can
that.
quote them on that. You can
quote them.
check with them on that.
Yeah, okay. All right, I will check with them. As for cluster munitions, our own organization has documented their use since the
What is
beginning.
your own organization?
Vice News, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Vice News?
Yes?
Yeah, and there's been multiple reports from various human rights organizations. The UN is looking into it. If the Saudi-led coalition is not deploying them, who is? Are you denying that they're being used at all? And just lastly, in terms of an international human rights inquiry, are you in support of one taking the formation of one, even though your government has begun an investigation, the Yemeni government has begun one? Do you oppose an international human rights inquiry? And on the question of the inquiries that have been set up within the GCC or within Yemen, do you have any results of those, any numbers for civilian casualties?
No, I don't have any numbers to quote to you today, and I deny that any of the Saudi forces or the coalition forces have used cluster bombs. Yes, we continue to affirm that no such weapons have been used. We have created our own independent investigative unit that consists of internationally recognized legal and military members who are helping the coalition investigate any incidents that are reported. We understand that the Yemeni government is also conducting similar investigations on other incidents that are on their side of the operations. And we feel that that should be sufficient to cover the needs of any such activities. Yes, ma'am.
If I can get, you mentioned a political settlement. In your opinion, would a political settlement include the Houthis in a power sharing role?
Definitely. We have no reason to exclude the Houthis from any political settlement. We think they are a component of Yemeni society. They are just as entitled as any other component to be represented. What we do not accept, and the Yemeni people do not accept, and the Yemeni government do not accept, is for any political party, the Houthis or anybody else, to have a military militia, to have a military wing. We will not accept a Hezbollah type situation in Yemen. And if the Houthis are willing to participate in the political process, they are most welcome to do so, as evidenced by the national dialogue that took place and in which the Houthis participated fully.
I have a follow-up question on Vice News's question about independent investigation. You say that the Saudi government has formed an independent panel to investigate it?
Yes.
But by independent panel, who are they paid for? If they're paid for by the Saudi government, they're not independent.
No, they are independent of the direct line of command of the coalition forces. That's what I.
Government.
Oh, yes.
Thank
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ambassador. My name is Sylviane Zehil, Lorient Le Jour, Beirut. My question is on Lebanon. I know you're here for Yemen, but it's timely.
I'm here for
question.
you. Anything.
Yeah, thank you. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia just called Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, and also the kingdom has asked the National to leave Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia also has stopped its commitment of 5 billion to the Lebanese army. Is this reversible? You have any something to explain about it? Thank
The
you.
government of Saudi Arabia has not requested Saudi citizens to evacuate Lebanon. We have advised Saudi citizens not to travel to Lebanon, and we have advised Saudi citizens in Lebanon that are there for no overriding reasons that maybe they should be conscious of their own safety and not be there. But we have not ordered Saudi citizens to leave or not to go to Lebanon. Secondly, is this reversible? I certainly hope so. If the Lebanese government is able to conduct its affairs with independence and goes away from the blackmail that Hezbollah is conducting on the Lebanese government and institutions. They have been blocking the election of a president for more than a year now. And so forth. And if that takes place, then hopefully that all would be reversible. We continue to hold Lebanon to be a dear and important country for us. We have all the best feelings and intentions as far as Lebanon is concerned. But what we will not tolerate is the continued behavior of Hezbollah as a terrorist organization inside Lebanon and outside. Yes, sir.
شكرا سعد السفير. المتابعين للبيانات الصادرة عن الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة السيد بان كيمون يلاحظون أنها لا تصدر إلا لإدانة الغارات التحالف العربي في اليمن وما يسقط عنها من ضحايا، أو لإدانة الهجمات تنظيم داعش التي تستهدف الحوثيين في العاصمة صنعاء، وليس أكثر من ذلك. وأنا أتحدث تحديدا وكثيرون غيري عن البيانات الصادرة عن السيد بان كيمون. هناك عشرات الهجمات تنظمها وتشنها داعش على مؤسسة الدولة في عدن، وكذلك جرائم ترقى إلى جرائم حرب يرتكبها الحوثيون وقوات المخلوع في تعز كما أشرت في بداية هذا المؤتمر الصحفي وفي مناطق كثيرة، ولكن لا يصدر بشأنها عن الأمين العام أي بيان يذكر. تترك هذه المهمة لمسؤولين أقل درجة وأقل أهمية. لماذا ذلك؟ هل لديكم تفسير؟ وهل تتحركون إزاء هذا الأمر؟ بمعنى هل تتواصلون مع الأمين العام بشأن هذه المعايير المزدوجة إن صح التعبير؟
لماذا؟ ما المسؤول بأعلم من السائل؟ لا أعرف السبب لماذا. فيما يتعلق بالأمين العام، طبعا نحن نكن لمعالي الأمين العام كل احترام وكل تقدير، ونثق في حسن نواياه ونثق في حرصه على الأمن والسلم العالميين. ولكننا نلاحظ فعلا مثل ما لاحظت أن المعلومات التي تصل إليه وتستوجب منه تعليقا عادة ما تكون متركزة في مثل هذه الأمور. أنا أعتقد أن الإعلام بصفة عامة يعتبر أن الهجوم على المملكة العربية السعودية وعلى دول التحالف أكثر تشويقا وأكثر إشارة من الهجوم على الحوثيين أو إبراز مدى استخدامهم للأطفال المقاتلين، إبراز مدى المخالفات التي يقومون بها ضد حقوق الإنسان في جميع أنحاء اليمن، في سيطرتهم غير المشروعة على مقدرات الدولة. كل هذه الأمور يبدو أنها لا تحظى بنفس القدر من الاهتمام أو بنفس القدر من التغطية. نحن نسعى إلى التواصل مع الأمين العام قدر المستطاع، ونقدر بطبيعة الحال انشغاله ونقدر التزاماته المتعددة، ولكننا بين وقت وآخر نحاول أن نوضح له ولغيره من المسؤولين في الأمم المتحدة وجهة النظر التي أشرت إليها ولا أعتقد أنها صحيحة. يسر.
بالنسبة لحزب الله، هل ستبلغون مجلس الأمن أو الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة بقراراتكم إن على مستوى مجلس التعاون الخليجي أو على مستوى المجلس الوزاري العربي؟
نعم، الجواب هو نعم.
ولكن يعني هل هو مجرد إبلاغ إجرائي أم ستطلبون من الأمم المتحدة أن تتخذ إجراء؟
في الوقت الحاضر إبلاغ، ونترك الخطوات المستقبلية للمستقبل. يس مام.
Ambassador, just two questions. The president of the Security Council yesterday said a ceasefire is a must in Yemen. I'm wondering your thoughts on prospects for a ceasefire. And also, in terms of the draft humanitarian resolution, he made very general comments about the dire situation there and the need to draw attention to international law. I mean, as a party to this conflict, it seems a little strange that you would oppose such general considerations.
I'm glad you asked a question about the statement by my dear friend, the Ambassador of Angola, yesterday in his capacity as President of the Security Council. With all due respect to Ambassador Ismail, we believe that he has gone beyond his mandate. His mandate was limited to giving a statement based on the elements to the press that was agreed by the Security Council. Whatever else he said at that point of time was an expression of his personal views and the views of Angola, which should not have been confused by his statement as President of the Security Council for the month. The question of cessation of hostilities is clearly addressed in Resolution 2216 that called for the implementation of certain requirements by the Houthis, which would then lead to a cessation of hostilities. But cessation of hostilities in place is only a legitimization and an approval of the illegal occupation of power by the Houthis. I'm not sure I understood your second question, but if I understand it correctly, you're saying you as a party to the conflict, why are you not concerned about the situation? Of course we are concerned about the situation. And secondly, we don't see ourselves as a party to the conflict. We are there in support of the legitimate government of Yemen, which is trying to restore its authority over the territory of Yemen. But we have no fight to pick with any of the Yemeni sides, and we are not there on our own behalf, except to the extent of defending our own territory, which has been subjected to numerous attacks by the Houthis, and where several hundred civilian Saudi citizens have lost their lives as a result of such attacks.
Just getting back to the draft humanitarian resolution, it would be an expression of concern of the situation, as you mentioned it. So why oppose it?
I didn't say we're opposing it. I didn't say we're opposing it. First of all, we have not seen a draft resolution, and I don't think a draft resolution does exist at this point of time. If there is one, we'll be happy to take a look at it. We don't think that a resolution is needed at this time, based on the statement by OCHA, based on the statement by Ismail Ould Sheikh Ahmed, based on our assessment of the situation, and based on the fact that Resolution 2216 has comprehensively addressed all the issues. If the Council wants to issue a new resolution, the Council has the prerogative to do so, and we are not here to object to that, but we hope that any such step would then not lead to the weakening of 2216 or to the prolongation of the military conflict, because the Houthis would then feel that they have a new lease on life by something that is other than 2216. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, you are skeptic about the integrity of the United Nations.
No.
OCHA, especially when
No, I have. No, I'm sorry. I have to
let me-
interrupt you here.
Yeah.
I have full respect for the integrity of the United Nations and the United Nations system.
Well, you have
You cannot.
expressed
You
some-
cannot put
you have
words in my
some
mouth on
reservations.
that.
You have expressed some reservations, at least, or regarding the equipment which was on the WFP ship. These
Hold on. I have to interrupt you again. I said we accepted at face value the assertions by the World Food Programme that this equipment was intended for United Nations personnel. We accepted that. We are not disputing that. So please do not put words in my mouth. Express your views.
Yeah.
You don't need to express mine. I'll be perfectly
okay.
capable of expressing mine.
Okay. Another thing, I mean, about the statements by the Secretary General, you said they are, in a way, one-sided, because he always condemned the strikes by the coalition.
That was the question of the questioner.
And you confirmed it.
And I said that we are always in communication with the Secretary General. I also said we have full respect for the Secretary General, and we always try to make sure that the information available to him is balanced and is comprehensive.
In the recent
No, if you're
condemnation-
trying
No,
to
in
get
the-
from me any condemnation or attack on anybody in the United Nations, you're not going to get that.
Okay. In the recent attack on Nehm, on the market in Nehm, the first aircraft hit the marketplace where 30 people were killed, 70 total between injured and killed. And then 3 other attacks followed that. That means after the people came to rescue the shoppers, 3 other air strikes were
This is the
targeted.
tactic that is used by Bashar al-Assad in Syria. This is not our style. So that is totally wrong. Yes, sir.
One
sir.
last thing. One last thing. If you
Yes, sir.
So, just want to know, in your as the situation goes on, and the multiple human rights and other organizations keep on saying that the attacks are wreaking havoc in Yemen. When do you think that the Saudi Arabia will stop this operation, so to speak, so that
well, I hope that our attacks are wreaking havoc on the forces of the Houthis and the forces of Ali Abdullah Saleh. That's what they are intended to do. That's what they are doing, and we will continue to do that as long as necessary until Resolution 2216 is fully implemented.
so do you think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel? That,
We
so
are
to
always
speak?
optimistic about light at the end of the tunnel. After
There is an appeal by the United Nations, humanitarian appeal for $1.8 billion. There was a similar appeal in 2015 for, I think, 1.4 or 1.5. But last year, not even 50% was satisfied, and most of the money came from Gulf states like your country, Qatar, and the Emirates and Kuwait. How about this year? What's the plan to satisfy the needs, humanitarian needs of the Yemeni people? Are you going to be always in the forefront of
We will always
donation?
be in the forefront of meeting the needs and requirements of the Yemeni people. We will always be there to help our Yemeni brothers in times of peace and in times of war, in times of reconstruction, in times of development, as we have always been for the last several decades. That has always been the special relationship between Saudi Arabia and Yemen.
Do you have plans for the aftermath? Is Saudi Arabia looking into for reconstructions of Yemen when and if the war stops?
We think the reconstruction of Yemen should be an international responsibility. We have said that we will make plans for an international conference for reconstruction in Yemen, and we hope that soon the time will come for such a conference. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot. It's actually, I'll keep it extremely short. Number one, I just wanted to ask you whether you think that OCHA, you said what OCHA said, and then you also said to my colleague Nizar, don't speak for me. Doesn't it apply to OCHA? And is OCHA have a conflict of interest, given that they've taken so much aid money, to be saying that there's no need for a Security Council resolution?
I think OCHA is independent enough not to be influenced by that. And secondly, you can verify that statement with OCHA.
And can you ask your Yemeni colleagues, I understand that on Tuesday next, they're coming to give a briefing in New York, but not in the United Nations, not where all journalists can go. And it's a request to you to suggest that they did it, to your credit, the way you did it, so that everyone can come and ask. If you
I'll
can let them know.
communicate that to my colleague, the
Excellent.
Ambassador of Yemen. Thank you all very much.